All right, today we're working on solving by substitution when we're talking about systems. So here's the steps that we take to solve via substitution. The first one is solve an equation for a variable. Doesn't matter which one, but you got to solve for a variable, get one by itself. Once that variable is by itself, we're going to substitute that in to our second equation. We're going to solve that for the remaining variable, and then we're going to substitute it back into either of our equations to get that final variable. Now, I said variable a lot, and as we work through some of these problems, I think you'll start to understand why we've got so many variables going on. So we're going to zoom in here to number 1. So as you see, both of these are already solved for a variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this chunk, I'm going to plug it in for y. So that'll get me negative x plus 6 equals 8. So I solved my first equation for a variable, and I plugged it into my second equation, or substituted. Now here I am, and I'm going to solve for that remaining variable. So I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. So that'll get me negative x equals 2. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So I get x equals negative 2. Now remember, when we're talking about solutions to systems, it comes in a point. So my first coordinate of my point is negative 2. That goes in the x spot. Now that I know that, I can go ahead and plug that in to either equation and find my y. So I'm going to plug it into that top equation. Y equals negative 2 plus 6. Two negatives make a positive, so that's just 2 plus 6. So I get y equals 8. Now, that is the long way to do that. If you would have stopped and looked at what we had here, we already had y equals 8. So I already knew what my y was. All right, let's try the second one. Again, both are already solved, so I'm going to just plug in this top one, or substitute that in for y. So I'm going to get 4x minus 1 equals 2x minus 5. Here you're going to solve for a variable, so I'm going to minus 2x. So that gives me 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Add 1 to both sides. So 2x equals negative 4. Divide both sides by 2. So x equals negative 2. Again, when we're talking points, my x coordinate is now negative 2. You can pick either one to plug it in. I'm going to pick the bottom one. Why not? So I'm going to do y equals 2 times negative 2 minus 5. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. That is our y coordinate, which means my solution is negative 2, negative 9. Moving on to number 3. Again, 3 is already solved for our variable. So all we have to do is take that and plug it in for our letter. So that gives me 2x plus 3. Instead of y, I'm going to put 6x equals negative 20. Now you'll start to see why we are solving, doing some of those essential skills before spring break. This is what those essential skills we're practicing. So I'm going to take that 3 and multiply it by our 6x. So that gives us 2x plus 3 times 6 is 18x equals negative 20. 2x plus 18x is 20x equals negative 20. Divide both sides by 20, so you get x equals negative 1. So again, going back to my point, my x is negative 1. And we're going to plug it in. Obviously, the easiest one is this top one, so let's plug it in. Y equals 6 times negative 1, which means y equals negative 6. So put that in that y spot. My final answer, negative 1, negative 6. I'm going to box that just so I remember. All right, let's move on to number 4. So all of our previous ones, y had been solved for. But as you could read from those instructions at the top, we can solve for either variable. You're going to pick the easiest one. Here, x is already solved for. So I'm going to take this chunk and plug that in for x. So I'm going to get 2 times my substitution, 4y plus 7 minus 6y equals 12. Okay, now I'm just going to solve for that y. I'm going to take this 2 and distribute it. So that'll give me 8y plus 14 minus 6y equals 12. I'm going to combine my like terms. 8y minus 6y is 2y plus 14 equals 12. I'm going to minus 14 to both sides. So 2y equals negative 2. Divide both sides. Y equals negative 1. So again, when I go to put my answer in, my y spot is negative 1. Plug it into either one. The top one's going to be the easiest, so I'm going to do that one. So I'm going to have x equals 4 times my y plus 7. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. So my x is 3. All right, let's move on to number 5. Here's where it starts to get a little tricky. Before, all of our variables have been solved for. Easy, plug it in, let's go. This one I don't have a variable solved for. So I need to pick one. When you're deciding what variable to solve for, you want to see if anyone have a coefficient of 1, or they're all by themselves. You see this y has a coefficient of 1, my x has a 2, x has a 5, y has a 3. So this one's going to be the easiest one to solve for. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. 2x plus y equals negative 2. So to get this y by itself, just like how we get it into y equals mx plus b form, I need to minus 2x. Bring down my y. Obviously, I can't combine an x and a number, so I'm just going to leave it. Negative 2x minus 2. Y is by itself, so now I'm going to plug this in. Now, where kids go wrong a lot is they are going to plug it in to that top equation. If you plug it in, you're always going to get infinite solutions. You're taking that equation and plugging it back into itself. You need to make sure that you're plugging it into the other equation. Okay, so here we go. 5x plus 3. Now I'm going to plug in what my y was equal to, which is negative 2x minus 2 equals negative 8. Again, take that 3 and distribute it. So I'm going to get 5x minus 6x minus 6 equals negative 8. Combining these like terms, so I get negative x minus 6 equals negative 8. Add 6 to both sides, so negative x equals negative 2, which means x equals positive 2. So when we're talking solutions here, my x is going to be 2. Now I'm going to plug it in. You can plug it into, now you have 3 choices. You can either plug it into your top equation, your bottom equation, or you could also plug it into this new equation that we picked. All 3 of those are the exact same equation, just rearranged. So I'm going to plug it into that top one. So I'm going to get 2 times my x plus y equals negative 2. 2 times 2 is 4. To get my 4 to the other side, I'm going to minus it. Negative 2 minus 4 is going to be negative 6. So now my y coordinate is negative 6. All right, let's go on to this last one. Again, it's not solved, so I have to pick one. I can either solve for x here with my coefficient of 3. Here for y, my coefficient is 15. This y, my coefficient is 5. But this one has a coefficient of 1. So I'm going to solve for this x. Sometimes they all have coefficients, and you're just going to have to pick one and go with it. So I'm going to solve over here. X plus 5y equals 4. Solve for x, I'm going to minus 5y. So my answer is x equals negative 5y plus 4. X is solved, so I'm going to take this and plug it in for x. All right, here we go. 3 times my junk, which will be negative 5y plus 4, plus 15y equals negative 1. Distribute that 3 inside, so that gives us negative 15y plus 12 plus 15y equals negative 1. Let's combine those like terms. Negative 15y plus 15y is 0. So that gives me 12 equals negative 1. Now think back to what we had said in that last video. When I have two numbers that don't equal each other, this now becomes no solution. And again, thinking back to what no solution means, that means if I were to solve both of these for y, my slope should be the same. Both of these will happen to be negative 1/5. All right, so that was our substitution. Now let's go back up to that original page and let's work out this substitution. Okay, so we're on that unit overview page if you need to get your bearings there. And I'm going into the substitution one. So once again, y is already by itself. So I'm going to take this chunk and I'm going to plug it in for y. So that gives me 3x plus 2 times my junk, x plus 4, equals 8. So I have to take that 2 and distribute it. So that gives me 3x plus 2x plus 8 equals 8. Going to combine my like terms here. 3 plus 2 is 5x plus 8 equals 8. Okay, I'm going to minus 8 to both sides, so that gives me 5x equals 0. Divide both sides by 5, so x equals 0. Now that I have that, I'm going to plug it in. Clearly the easier one to plug it into is going to be this one. Okay, so I'm going to get y equals 0 plus 4, which means y equals 4. My final solution is going to be x, comma, y. All right, that is the end of this video. If you've got any questions about substitution, please let me know, and then proceed to do the homework listed. Have a